Okay, we will get started now. Welcome again, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Christine Hallim, and I'm the Events and Membership Coordinator at Connecting Up in Australia. Today's webinar that you are here today for is on CiviCRM. Our presenter for the day is Peter Davies. He's from Fusion in New Zealand, and he's going to give a brief overview on CiviCRM and then continue on with the actual demonstration of the software and how you can utilize it for your not-for-profit. Just a few housekeeping notes. Some of you have joined us a few times, might know this, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them at any time during the webinar by typing your question in the question box, which I will then moderate either halfway through or towards the end of the webinar or as we go along. Other than that, we are recording the webinar, so if you do need to leave slightly early or anything, you can definitely catch up a bit later, but I hope you all stay towards the end and ask as many questions as you like, because that's the whole purpose, is to help you get the most out of these training events. Without further ado, I will pass on to Peter. Peter, can you hear me? You there?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Yep.
And you can see the screen, I take it?
Yes, it's all good.
Cool. Okay.
Yep.
Well, hi everybody. Cool. Okay. Well, we've got quite a range of things to cover, so I'm going to get going straight away in terms of the introduction. CiviCRM. If you aren't aware, CRM tends to stand for Contact Relationship Management. So the CRM is relating to the database that is used for CiviCRM. CiviCRM is an open source product. It originated in the 2004 Democrat presidential candidate campaign run by Howard Dean, where he came through as a black horse, mostly because he raised so much money online thanks to the software. That software was then handed on to a civic foundation, which then took it over, and it became CiviCRM as a sort of standalone project. It is free and open source software, so it's free to download, it's free to use. There are no license or per user costs. There are, of course, costs for getting the system installed and implemented, customized. Those costs can either be that work can either be done by consultants such as us, or can be done in-house if your organization has somebody who's sufficiently tech savvy. And of course there needs to be a hosting arrangement, because the software is server-based, which means in a sense it's sitting in the cloud, it's sitting on a server. It can be in your room, or it can in your office, or it can usually be external. But that means that it's real-time data, so you're not in a situation of two people in the office having your Access database and everyone else having to come and look over their shoulder to see what the data is. And it's because it's operating very much like a website, you have multi-user access, so you can have as many people accessing the system as you need to, and in accessing the system, people can be given different roles, different levels of access, so that some people can perhaps only view contacts. Other users can access the contribution data or the membership data, or even there you can allow some people to only see the membership data but not edit it, so that you can protect the data as much as you like, as much as you need to within your own organizational requirements. So CiviCRM is the contact database, and it zips together with a content management system. Now the content management system is what gives you the website to look at. In the example that we're looking at, where it says CiviCRM demo, this is a Drupal website. Drupal is one of the major open source website CMSs, CMS meaning content management system, but it also works with Joomla and WordPress, and together those three are by and large the majority of open source websites in the world. So we're going to be running through the basics of CiviCRM, contribution, membership, events, etc. You can see on the screen a little mind map up here, which I'll just be using just to partly give myself a cue as to where I am and where I need to get what else I need to get through, but also just to give you a menu of what we're going to be running through. With that, I really want to just jump in and start describing the system and taking you through the system. Once I've covered a little detail around principles of good data. Now the ideal system, the ideal way of managing data is that there would only ever be data in one place, so that you're not ending up with data repetition and potentially with data being out of sync in one place to another. So this means that we would ideally have one record per contact. So the record you're looking at here says Peter Davis, and we would prefer not to have Peter and Mary Davis pretending to be the same contact record. We would have one for each of them. And that, especially for if you're looking at using CiviCRM or any database and pulling information in from existing lists that you may have as spreadsheets, is that it's really important that the data is separated as much as possible, in that you need the first name and the last name to be in different fields, and you would need the address details to be in different fields. So the street and the city and the postcode would all need to be unique bits of information to bring in. So just to give you a quick guide around what we're seeing here, as I've said, this is this is just the contact summary screen that we're looking at here. I'm looking at my own record. This is the back-end view. Obviously, this is what your administrators would be able to see. As a very quick run around, right up here in the top left corner is what is called the quick search, and if I just type in any aspect of a name, then I'm likely to find the contacts I want. And if I was to hit enter at this point when I've just typed in Davis, I would then find all the Davises in the system, and I'd see a set like this, and then I would click on it to come back to one of those particular records. When I've got to that record, there are a number of things I can do directly from here, which I'll come to, but I want to point out some of the buttons at the moment. The Actions button is where I can set up activities with that person, such as sending an email directly to them, or recording, or recording the fact that a phone call has been made, or that a phone call needs to be made, and setting a date in the future, and also adding memberships, contributions, and so on for this contact. So on this screen, what we're seeing here, I just need to bring up a little tool just to, is this set of tabs here. This is basically all related to this particular contact, and at the moment we are sitting on the summary tab, and in that summary tab is where we will get to see let's make the screen a bit wider, is where we get to see the person's name, details, email, address, and so on. You can see that I've got one address in here. It's not complete, and I can just click in to edit address and put in the fact that I'm based in Wellington, and save that. So we don't actually have to enter this whole screen through the edit button up here, which I'm about to do, which will access all of that data pertaining to that summary screen. So you can see here we've got my name details, my current employer, which I'm about to change, so I'm just going to click in here and type in that I actually work for Fusion, so I can click on that, and that will then create what's called a relationship between my contact record and a contact record for Fusion. With email addresses, you can have as many email addresses as you like, so if I need to add another one, so I can just add another one and set that to be my my work email address. The same with phones. We can have multiple phones. Just put in a series there, and just remembered I had a Czech person working on the system before. So I would set that to be my home phone, and then if I needed to add another phone, which would be the work one, then I can add a work one and set that obviously to work, or it might be my work mobile phone. So I won't cover every little bit of this screen because there's a lot here, but I will now go through into the addresses where, again, we have the ability to have multiple addresses. This one is set to be my home, but it could be my billing or main or other. Everybody who has an address must have one set to be their primary location. And we can also set it so that one record can share another contact's address. Therefore, if, for example, this contact was an employee of a company and I wanted to basically pull in the company's address rather than putting in this person's personal address, then I could pull in the address here, which I'm just about to do. And then if I save, when we look at the address on that person's summary screen, we'll see that it's now telling me that the address belongs to Fusion, and that therefore if we had 10 employees all connected to Fusion, or 10 organisers all connected to a non-profit, then we only have to edit the organisation's address one, and it will update all of the contacts that are sharing that address. In this next block here, where we have email greeting, postal greeting, and addressee, this is basically a functionality so that if you need to put in a non-default greeting to people, such as using their nickname when you're emailing them, but using their formal name when you're sending a letter, that option is there. You can see we've got edit, gender, date of birth. A few of those these fields come in the core system, but also we can have custom fields in here, and I will show how we make a custom field shortly so that we can add or edit that data. So just to summarize, we've just been looking at this summary tab at the top here. I'm now going to move along and take a look at a couple of these other ones, which we'll spend a little more time on. Contributions, there have not been any contributions recorded for this contact. We can record one, telling with the options as to what that donation was made for, how much it was for, how it was paid. We can put in, if it had been a check, let me choose check, we'll get a field where we can put in the check number if that's been received. We can specify whether we want to send a receipt at this point or not, and we also have a field that tells us what status the contribution is, because when we are collecting donations off a public-facing page, the public will be given can be given the option of either paying immediately by credit card or by choosing a pay later option and therefore sending you a check. And in that case, then the contribution status would be set for pending, and then when the check comes, you would then go to this person's record and confirm that it's been paid and set this to completed. For now, I'm just going to set that to completed, and I'm going to save, and you'll see now the contribution tab. We've now got a 1 against my record because I've made a contribution. Contribution pages are obviously something that we need to have available for the public, so I'm just going to move up to this donate button at the top and open up a new page, and this is a public-facing page that I've created. You can see that in this case I've put in a few examples as to the amount that we're asking them to pay, or they can specify a other amount. Contribution pages can also be set to use recurring payments if your payment processor permits it. You can see down here we've got the option to specify for this payment option whether I want to be paying by credit card, and because of the type of payment processor that we're using, this one being PayPal, or a dummy one for PayPal, we get to see the credit card details on this screen. eWay in Australia similarly puts the credit card details onto the screen. Other payment processors such as DPS in New Zealand handle all of that information off-site, so you would simply click and go through to their site to make this information. CiviCRM doesn't keep the credit card information, so in terms of levels of security, those credit card details aren't being kept in CiviCRM. These will just be handed directly over to, for example, PayPal. Once PayPal has had the credit card swipe done on their system, then they hand the information back to CiviCRM to say this transaction has been completed or has failed, along with a transaction number, so that we can keep those two lots of data in sync. So if I was to click on Pay Later, those fields are going to disappear. I can confirm my contribution, which can take us through a confirmation page or not, and I'll just complete that, and that will then tell me that I've made a $10 donation as a Pay Later. So again, if I go back to Peter Davis's record, then you'll see my contribution number is sitting up at 2. And if I click on there, you'll see the 123, which you saw me make live through the back end. And here's this $10 donation that I've just made online, and you can see that it's set for pending Pay Later. So as I mentioned before, if we now skip into here, we can now say that this contribution payment has been completed because we got the receipt, we got the check, and so we can put the check number in and save. And so now we'll see that Peter Davis has made 2 completed contributions. In terms of the concept of memberships, in the
Peter, I might cut you there. I have a question here related to the donations. So Brockton is asking if Civi plays well with UberCart or Commerce for donations.
Yeah, good question. So UberCart and Commerce, for other people's benefit, are 2 modules that are available with the Drupal CMS. They're basically e-shopping modules. UberCart, there has been some integration done with UberCart, so there are a couple of other modules which will tie UberCart and CiviCRM together. It's not a route that we would recommend, but we have implemented it for one client, but it does mean that you are running on additional modules which then need to be upgraded and maintained. There hasn't yet been any work that I'm aware of for integration with Commerce, but I know that we're going to be looking at doing that for a couple of clients anyway, because Commerce is sort of taking over as one of the main players for e-shops.
There's another question here relating,
Yep.
on
Sure,
donations. What about tax receipts? Does the system issue those?
Tax receipts? I think that will depend entirely on the requirements for the particular country or tax system that you're operating in. So I'd probably need to know more detail about that. I know that there is not, I don't believe that there is a built-in solution to allow you to basically produce an end-of-year tax statement, of all the contributions that a person has made. But I've seen that request made frequently on the forums, and I would expect that the solution is available, but it just hasn't been built into core at the moment. I'm not sure if that answered the question.
Yeah, I think it would be. If there's any further questions arising from that, I will raise that with you later on. And one from Isabel here, is there a capacity to export to MYOB?
There isn't any integration that has been done yet with MYOB, Mind Your Own Business, which is an accounting software package. We have done some integration with Xero, which is an online accounting system so that we know that integration can be done. But at the moment, there is a lot of work being done to refactor how CiviCRM handles financial information in order that it will be more straightforward to integrate Civi with MYOB or, my brain's gone dead, the other major non-profit accounting package.
Is it
which I'll
QuickBooks?
pass by, but QuickBooks, yes,
Yeah.
I was thinking it began with a W, but it's Q, yeah. Shall I slip on to membership?
Just one last thing. You mentioned about Xero before. Is the Xero integration available to the open source community, or is it a Fusion-only model?
It's not available yet because we haven't completed the work for the client who's funding it, and we will probably be pulling in a couple of other clients to help fund that to get it to a point where it will be able to be open sourced. Yeah.
I think that's all on the donation side. So, yep, feel free to move on to memberships.
Okay. So memberships, to set up memberships, we have to create membership types. Membership types are basically require us to say who you're becoming a member of, which would be the organisation, what the minimum fee would be, what the duration would be, 2-year rolling or 1-year fixed and that sort of thing, and also whether or not the membership is just a one-to-one membership, i.e. I pay for it and I get it, or whether it's an inherited membership such that I buy it and anybody who has a specified relationship with me, such as if I'm a company and I want the membership to spill down to the employees, then we can set that so it runs off a particular relationship type. So with the join, I'll go to the front-facing forms this time rather than to the back end. Effectively, this is simply a contribution page with the membership section inserted. So here you can see that you can choose between the general membership or a student membership, and basically purchase your membership through this system. So if I confirm the contribution on my record now, you'll see that I've now got one membership. Because I didn't pay online, it's set to pending, and so I can go in to edit this, and I can now specify that that I want to update the payment status. I'm going to set it to completed. I can set to send the confirmation receipt and save that, and that will therefore give this contact a membership that you can see start on the 11th of October. A year later, if we needed to do the renewal at the back end, then we just have a renew button which we can click, record the payment if it wasn't being done online, and don't need to do anything more, renew, and you'll see that that's now extended the membership by another full year. Anything else I need to show on memberships? At this point, I think I'll slide on down our list because we've got a fair bit still to show, and it's always a hard choice to make whether to show you a smaller number of the functionalities in great detail or try and give you a very quick overview of what's happening on this in the system.
I have a few questions here on membership, if that's all right.
Yep.
Nicole is asking that they're finding that when they're manually renewing people's memberships in the back end of CiviCRM, these are not coming up in their Civi monthly summaries of which members have joined or renewed that month, and they need to know that all new members and renewals for their accounting. Do you have any ideas why that happens and how to get that sorted?
I don't think I should try and answer that directly. I think that's quite a specific question that's a bit more of a support question. I mean, I'm not trying to evade the question. I just think that given the large group of people here, I think that I should probably continue to give an overview of it. I mean, if you want, I'm happy to take a Skype call from that person and see if I can give them a quick answer as to what might be misconfigured on their system.
Sure, we will get that offline. What about
Yeah,
one thing
so
from... Sorry, yeah, I will. We'll sort it out after. A generic question: can a membership payment be recurring?
yes, they can. The recurring auto-renew can be done, but again, it will depend on whether the payment processor that you are using accepts recurring payments. So some do. Authorize.net does. PayPal does. eWay, from my last checking with them, and we use them with some of our clients, they have the capability at their end, but that the code to enable it from CiviCRM hasn't been written yet. And we don't believe that's a significant job. It's just that nobody's stepped up to do it yet.
Just one last question on membership. What about family memberships?
Next thing. Oh, yeah.
Family
Yeah,
membership?
you can do family memberships. I don't know if any quick eyes spotted that when we were looking at the membership type that I clicked on, see this general. In this column here where it says household member, this is basically saying that, well, the membership can therefore spill over from the person who purchased it to the other people who are a household member, or in the questioner's case, a family member of. And that's using relationships, and you can create your own relationships in CiviCRM really easily to cover those requirements. The next thing I was going to jump into is events, and we'll just go and look at an event that I popped in the oven before. This is a very simple event. All we've got is a radio system for saying how much this event will cost. We then include a profile which will show us the fields that are being filled in by the person. Excuse the fact that these ones that the address ones aren't showing as boxes. They should be showing as boxes that can be written in. And again, the same system, that it can be credit card or pay later if it's a required one. And also, if we need to collect some other information, such as what sort of meal, people vegan or vegetarian, what time their plane's coming in, and so on. That sort of information can all be collected. So that's a really simple event. I'll just go to one that's got a slightly more complex payment structure. So in this case, we're saying that for this event fee, we're asking you how many of the red apples you're wanting to try out at the taster, and how many of the green apples. And as you see, when I'm entering the number, it's building the event fee on the fly. So a more rigorous example of this would be where you are running an event that has a meal as an extra that people can sign up to, or where you're running workshops and each workshop has a different, people can sign up for 3 or 5 workshops and each one carries a fee. So you can build up a very complex price set in order to capture all of that information. I'll just step you into the back end to see what an event looks like from the back end in terms of what you need to configure. So if we look in the apple tasting one, basically the first screen is where we're putting in the basic information that would show on an information page about the event rather than a registration page. This would be where you'd be setting the time and date. We can set a maximum number of participants. We can set a wait listing on the event so that if you get to 30 and people are still booking, then you can hold those people in a wait list in case somebody cancels. On the second tab, you get to set in your location, and if you're using geocoding, then you can set that will automatically get recorded as a geocode location, so it will show on a map. Fees is where, in the simple case, we would be going in and, this one was on the price set. I'm going to turn the price set off so we can see that effectively you'd be putting in, that this is the simple registration for $35 and the complex on the extra one for $50. And then the final part that is used for any online registration is that we need to turn the online system on, and as well as having various places where you can put all your text, the key thing is that we then have to pull in what's called a profile, and this profile is what will give us the fields to collect the name and address, and in the second case to collect the information about the soup choices, just as an example. On all the donation, membership and event forms publicly, we can implement a tell a friend system, so they can spell out, they can put in the email addresses for half a dozen of their friends and get a message fired off to them. And that's kind of I don't believe I've got any. Oops, let me get out of there. Clearly, each of these areas, the contributions section, has a find contribution so that you can delve into what's going on there. Same with the memberships, find members, and in this case I've gone to the find participants for the event. If we were to type in the event name, apple tasting, then if we had any participants on here and search, we would then get a list of the participants, and you can then do further things with those set of results. If you have an event that you have people signing at the door to come in, then you can enter that information into a spreadsheet and then import those participants so that you can record them against your event, so you can keep track of who came to which event. If you have events that are recurring events, or very, that you have very similar styles of events, then you can create an event template which just takes a couple of steps out of the process for when you want to create a new event, such as using the same location each time and so on. Let me just check back here, see what else we had under events. Our early bird, you can, on the price sets or on the fees, you can set that the fees change at a particular date, once or twice and so on, so that you offer the early birds. Any questions on the event side at this point?
There's no specific events question. There's a few other questions which I will hold on till the end.
Okay. Events, activities. Activities are basically being recorded all the time against a contact. So you'll see on my tab here, activities is up to 14 because it will have recorded the membership renewal that we made, as well as the membership sign up that we made, and the contributions that have been made, any bulk emails that have been sent out, any personal emails that have been sent out, any phone calls that were set up. This looks like one that was undertaken, so you see it's showing in red. And I'll go into this one just to explain a little bit more. So when we're setting up an event, you can see that in this case it was set up by Peter Davis. He needed to have a phone call with John Davis. The task is assigned to Peter Davis, or it could be assigned to several people. And it's set as scheduled for that date, and therefore it hasn't happened, so it's showing on Peter Davis's list. And on the date that the task should have occurred, if it hasn't happened, then Peter Davis will get an email. And in the same way, when we set up one of these activities, the people who the task gets assigned to will get an email telling them that they've got a task that needs to be completed. Now, the options for activities, you can see them under this Actions button, or you can get to them by activity of type here, and you can see that we've created some activity types. One here is called interview or needs investigating. So this is very much one of those areas where you will end up creating things that will meet your particular use cases. Now I just want to come on to the relationship side of things. This is another important part of the system. On my summary record, you can see that I've got a link here to the contact record for Fusion, which was my employer. If I click on my Relationships tab, then you will see that down as one of the relationships, and you'll see that I've also got set up a couple of others to my siblings. If I click through to Fusion, then we'll see on the Relationship tab from Fusion's end, we will see the relationship to Peter Davis, but also it's employing John Davis, and therefore we'll see both of those recorded on that Relationship tab. Again, similarly, if we click through to John, then on his Relationship tab we'll see that he's got the sibling of Peter Davis and the employee of Fusion. One of the extra things about relationships is that we can record start and end dates, so that it's often used by organizations to keep a track of who was on the board of directors or who was on a particular committee or working group at any particular time. Whilst I'm on John's record, I just want to flag that the reason we're seeing all of these bits in red are because either John has responded to a mailing and said, I don't want to have any more mailings from you, or the emails have been bouncing and that therefore it's basically set it to not be able to be used for the moment. Everybody has the privacy settings where you can flag if somebody should not be receiving phone calls or emails and so on. Relationships are very easy to set up. You see here, if we go to relationship types, you'll see a range of ones that have been either come in with the Civi out of the box or that we've created. Creating a relationship, I was just thinking of a pet, so we could actually set one up of owner for the pet owner being the owner of, and at the pet end we could set owner is, and we would then set the contact type A to be individual, and the contact type B would be to an individual subtype of pet if we had gone down that route, but we hadn't. I was just thinking of an example quickly off the top of my head. So we'll put it down to students and change this to teacher of and student of, and that's created that relationship. So we can then use that on the relationship tab. One of the areas that you'll probably be most interested in is how you can differentiate amongst your contacts in terms of their interests or their characteristics and so on. There are a number of ways of doing this, and it's not always clear at the outset whether what's going to be best is to create a custom field, such as these custom fields that I've set here. What to ask, what fruit might be somebody's favorite. So there we go, I've saved that, and that if I then wanted to, I could create a group of all the people who had put cherry in their fruit text. But we can also specify tags and groups. Tags have a particular characteristic in that they can be set up in a hierarchy such that you can expand and collapse and set this person to having 2 types of apples plus being a non-profit and maybe a major donor. You'll see that in this case with tags things get automatically saved without needing to use the save button. If we go to groups, we can add this person to various groups, and we could say that he's interest 1. So he's signed up for Interest 1, or we've signed him up for the Interest 1 group. If there were groups that you wanted to have available to the public to sign up to through a public form, then here is a typical form where we can put in and they are then able to opt into and similarly opt out of groups as they choose. One of the fundamentals for using groups is that groups are the basic building block for sending out bulk mail, and so if you know that the purpose of your group is the purpose of your categorization of your contacts is because you want to use that as a mailing list, then you would be setting that up as a group probably rather than as a tag. I'm just going to use the quick search up here. Percentage is the wildcard. I just want to find everyone who's got Fusion in their name or their email address. And I could either select all the 10 records, or I could select just the ones on this page, or I could pick a few. And at this point I can go Actions, and down here at the bottom you can see that I can assign tags to all of those contacts in one go, or I could remove tags from all of those contacts in one go. I could add them all to a standard group, or I could, if I had chosen to select all of the records, and therefore this therefore becomes a saved search, I could then create a new smart group. And that new smart group is basically going to have anybody who has a name or email such as Fusion. Now I believe I've already created this, so I'm just going to go through to my Manage Groups. You can see here I've got a Fusion smart group, and if I look at the contacts, you'll see that I have the 10 that I had selected previously. Now if I go to John's record and take out a couple of these email addresses, I'll just change that one. And go back to the contacts in the smart group. If the gods are smiling on me, then when we rerun that search, we should now find that John's dropped out. So we've dropped down from 10 contacts to 9 contacts. John's disappeared out of here. Similarly, if we had created a new contact, and save that, then if we get ourselves back to the smart group and have another look, that person should now be appearing in here. Unless I did something wrong. No, I didn't. It's there. So we should see Joan Fusion is now sitting in that. So the importance of a smart group is that it's a saved search. It's looking in the data and telling you who are the people who currently match the criteria for that group, as opposed to a standard group, which would be more like a committee where you've added John and Peter and Mary directly into that group. I've referred briefly to the custom fields just to give you a sense of what's involved in creating those. I'm trying to keep an eye on the time here too. If we needed to create a new custom field under my fruit, so I can add a custom field, and what this asks me, so if I go favorite fruit, and I wanted to make that a select field, so apple oops, so that's created, that has now created the that custom field. I'm just going to make a couple more just quickly using those same characteristics. So this is going to be my most hated fruit, but I'm going to use the same set of fields, but this time I'm going to make it a radio set. And I'm going to use the field set that I just created of favorite fruit, so it gives me the same options. And for fruits that I like, it needs to be a checkbox because there are multiple answers that I can give. So if we now go and look in Peter Davis's fruit field, you'll see that I've just created, I was a little too quick on that last option, but there we have a select box, here we have a radio one, and that I like. I obviously failed to click on the last checkbox, last option, which would give me a checkbox like I have up here where I can select both. So that's how we make custom fields. And whether you have them showing as a tab by itself, or whether we have them showing as a set of fields down here, such as constituent information, is just a simple choice that you make when you create or edit that group of fields. So you can see custom fields can be pretty straightforward. You can then import data to those records. We can obviously export that information. So I'm just going to move this one up. Exporting, if we no, I want to just run through searching first before exporting. So we've had a quick look already at a couple of the search options. We have the quick search up here, which, as I said, we could find everyone who has Fusion in their address. And you can see what that's done here is it's find contacts. I can choose whether I want to limit the choice by the different contact types. I can limit it, filter it by groups or tabs. There's also an advanced search functionality, which can be kind of daunting the first few times you come across it. But effectively what we're getting here is the ability to search by people who've attended events and or by people who have a particular membership type or status or end date or join date, or what their contribution record is. So if you wanted to say, I want to find everybody who's donated over $1,000 during this year and who is a member and who attended this event because you want to send them an invitation to a big fundraiser, you can run those sort of queries through here. We've also, higher up here, I'm just going to expand the custom fields section. So you can see here are the fields. Here's that hated fruit one that I just created, or the checkbox, and these other fields that were already in the system. So, as well as those, we have some more complex ones which I won't go into, but I will highlight that under the custom searches, so these are searches that clients that we might have or somebody else have gone, look, we really need something that can do this. One example is the proximity search, which allows you to basically say, find me everybody within 5 kilometers of a particular postcode, or at a street address or wherever, and it would then run off and do the search. I'm not expecting to get any results off this. Oh, I did, because they're all have this street address. So obviously that's useful for sending out alerts if you're an advocacy organization, or to invite people to events and so on. If we were then wanting to export these contacts, that's one of the options. Under the actions list here we have export contacts, which then takes us to a so I'm just going to take you back to all 10 records. So if we need to export those contacts, at this point we get to select whether we field that we want to use, and we can then add more fields to this. So you can see at this point I'm specifying that I want the display name, street address, city. If I also wanted to get the date of birth, I can add that field in. I can update that field mapping and export it, and that will then come out as an Excel document or a spreadsheet that you can open up in whatever software you use. Similarly, if you have a spreadsheet of data such as this, we can do the reverse and import that data into CiviCRM through a simple import contact wizard, which I won't show you because I know we need to allow a little bit more time for questions at the end here. Communications, it's obviously very important. There's a bulk mail system that you can use to create new mailings, selecting the group that you want to use, creating the email just on the fly or using a template. And in this case, this was a template which we've set up using a lot of different tokens so that the email that the person receives will come through to them as, let me find a better example, I've got a few of them sitting here. So see, this one's come through with the details for this person. What we've also done here is provided a special link that will take them through without having to log in, without having to have a website account, that will take them through to a form that's already pre-filled with their details so that they can then add extra information, update the records, and do all that without having to log in, passwords, and so on. CiviCRM's coming out, the next version is going to come out with SMS capability. You can also print PDF letters for contacts. And there is a comprehensive, as you can see here, a comprehensive set of pre-built report templates that you can use, and you can also create custom templates off these so that you can set up a report that more specifically meets your requirements, and that these can also be set up so that they get emailed out directly to the treasurer, for example, on a weekly or monthly basis, or whatever you want to set it up. And I think that's probably pretty much brought me to the end of this really quick run through. There were a few things that I had popped in under on the if I had time. I don't have. I do want to stress that the CiviCRM community is very strong. People who are used to the Drupal communities have tended to comment that the CiviCRM community is far more active and responsive to issues that people raise. There are online books available, case studies. You'll find all of these at civicrm.org. There's an IRC channel for the developers who need to get together, as well as development and documentation camps and sprints, including we're just planning in the early stages of planning one for Sydney in February 2013 for anyone who might be heading over to the Drupal camp there. And I'll just leave it with a couple of screens open here just to give you an idea of some of the clients. These are some examples of clients here. You can see there's quite a wide range between political parties social agencies, walking advocacy, social activism, organisations, student exchange, and then within the larger CiviSphere, to give you some example, the Wikimedia Foundation used CiviCRM, I believe, last year to raise over 30 million to keep Wikipedia going. And the New York State Senate is another very, very big example where they're running a collection of 60 separate CiviCRM databases with, I believe, over 100,000 records in each. We know that there are CiviCRMs with over 1 million records. We've got some with several 100,000 and getting up to 800,000 transaction records there. So I know I haven't left very much time for questions, but please go ahead.
We do have a few lined up here, Peter. First of all, someone's asking about the advantages and the disadvantages of integrating CiviCRM with Drupal versus Joomla versus WordPress. So what's the benefits of each? Yeah.
Yeah. There are definitely more capabilities with Drupal than with Joomla or WordPress, partly because of Drupal having a more highly permissioned system. So there's greater integration between Drupal and CiviCRM, but there is also, there's work going on amongst the Joomla community to create plugins that they can use. WordPress is very much the new option in town. It's only been released in the last year or so. Two of the areas particularly that we use, we will always use Drupal for our clients, is that there are two Drupal modules called Views and Webform, which give us a great ability to pull CiviCRM data out into the CMS and display it and give people pre-filled forms in a way that CiviCRM itself doesn't allow. Joomla and WordPress are both simpler, more easily managed or more easily learnt systems for creating websites. So Drupal has more capabilities, but it's a harder road to go in terms of learning how it works.
A question in terms of the hosting as well. What's your recommendation rehosting of CiviCRM versus installation on the organization server?
CiviCRM is pretty hungry in terms of its resources, with RAM particularly. That's quite a specific question. There are recommendations on the CiviCRM site as to how much what the RAM requirements would be. We tend to go with 300 megabyte of RAM per database max.
Yeah. So the ones that you've been showing us on the demo, is that all part of CiviCRM or is that set up on Drupal site? That's already integrated with the Drupal site?
It has to be integrated with the CMS, otherwise you won't get to see CiviCRM. These are demo sites that we've got set up, but CiviCRM.org, there's also a demo site there, both in Drupal and Joomla.
Great. A few questions on going back to donation and membership. If someone makes a donation pays membership online, does it automatically create a new cart for that person? But if that person already has a cart with the organization, how does the system realize this and allocate it to the right person rather than set up a new cart? So I think reducing duplications.
Okay. If you're using the word cart, which is an e-shopping term, CiviCRM itself doesn't actually operate with a cart. So if somebody's come to let me just pull this over. So here we are logged out, and if we were to go to an event to sign up and we weren't logged, and we're not logged in, then CiviCRM has a bunch of matching rules that can be configured to say whether or not the match should be made on first name plus email, or first name plus last name plus email, or email only. And if it makes that match, then you get it will add the information to an existing contact. If you end up with duplicates in the system, which is inevitable, then there are a bunch of duplicate management tools, which allow you to basically run a rule to find all the people. I don't know that I'll necessarily find any on this database, to find all the people who match according to those rules, and that then you would be able to run a merge to join the information together on those two records.
Attach documents to the card, like a scanned version of an application form, for example?
Yeah, you can add you can create a file field. So when you're creating fields, you can create a file field, and therefore people can add attachments. So if I just go in here, you can ask the next question, but you can see here I'm selecting file, save. So that's created a file field which I could then set to show on an event registration page, etc.
Just a few quick questions on the software update. Have there been any major advances between CV3 and 4 on the mailing section, such as templating reporting? And how often does the software update, and does it automatically update to the newer version, or does it have to be manual?
No, you have to manually update. The CiviCRM release cycle for major releases is about 6 monthly. So 4.2 came out a little bit earlier this year, and 4.3, which will be coming out with a whole new set of features such as the SMS, a far smarter donation page capability, and so on. Yeah, you have to upgrade to those. And obviously, if when you're upgrading you've had some customizations done for your site, then you need to be cautious as to whether the upgrade will cause your customizations to fail and need to be looked at to keep them working.
Has there been
CiviCRM does minor releases in between, which are obviously more bug fix type things. So today 4.2.3 has just been released to fix a couple of bugs that were in 4.2.2.
And has there been a lot of changes or advances between the different versions on the mailing section?
Ooh, that's a bit of a specific question. Yes, particularly around the ability to search. So CiviMail is now part of the advanced search capability, whereas it wasn't previously. So it means that you can do some so in here you'll see in mailings we can now say, well, we want to find the contacts who had a particular mailing who've also donated over $500 since then, because that way you'd be able to potentially find the people who donated, as a result of getting that mail out that went. The actual 5-step process of doing the Civi mailing won't have changed significantly. There might have been a few minor changes, but I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Just two last questions. You mentioned about SMS before. Does that mean you can do bulk SMS directly from the software without the use of an external provider?
No, it still uses an external provider.
Okay.
But I believe 4.3 is coming out with two-way SMS so that it can get SMS replies coming in as well.
And last one on what are camps and sprints?
Oh, sorry, camps and sprints. So they're basically a get-together. So, for example, in Sydney, there's going to be a CiviCon, a Civi conference, which would be a one-day session where there'd probably be about 8 different sessions with people, with multi-sessions with people talking about particular areas of CiviCRM that they've done development work on, so they can share that information out to other people, or particular case studies. What tends to happen is that they also run a 3 or 4 day camp or a sprint alongside that, so that we've just come back from Bristol where we had a 4-day, 5-day sprint. There were about 30 of us at the max, and people along with the core team. So CiviCRM has a core full-time team who are there, so my developer is able to sit down with them and actually nut through some issues. Somebody like myself can raise issues about problems that users keep having in terms of particular user interface aspects, so that it's just a really good chance to sit down and talk through both the inevitable pain bits that are on any system, but also the new and exciting developments that other people are working on, and that as a result of those code sprints, as a result of the code sprint in Bristol, we're going to have a bunch of new features in 4.3 that were all developed privately by particular clients, but they've talked with the core team and they've now accepted that all that code's going to go into the core, and thus the open source side of this project means that there are continually new features coming in as different contractors and consultants build them.
That's basically the end of the question. I mean, there was a question on performance issues on speed if CiviCRM is hosted, but I take it it shouldn't affect speed and all that kind of issues.
That has to be looked at. I mean, clearly, if we're running if you're running a really large database, then there will be performance issues, particularly on some queries, and we are actually pushing a performance quote make it happen fundraising project for CiviCRM to deal with some of those gnarlier areas. We've had quite a few clients where we've done what's called a multi-level setup, so that you might have a federal and a state and a branch organization where the branch can only access its contacts and the state can then access all of its branches' contacts and the federal can access everybody. And certainly once we start running those multi-level systems, we can hit some queries that can that are not as efficient as we know they can be, and therefore we're looking to do some further work on that performance.
Of the
And
webinar,
if you're running the CiviCRM database on the if you're running the CiviCRM database on the same server as your website, which is how we would tend to do it, you do have to allow you do need to sort of ensure that any performance hits that the database is making isn't going to cause problems for the website users.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Peter, for the answers. I think I've got a lot of comments saying thank you, and it's been very comprehensive. So thanks once again. I will send everyone the link to the recording once we've uploaded it, and also a copy of the slides that you provided me earlier, Peter, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, can I have access to the recording too?
Yeah, definitely. So I will send that
to
Sorry, go on.
I was going to share it with a couple of clients who were going to start doing some training, and I advised that it would probably be worthwhile them using this webinar as an overview, and then we can start on more specific training for them.
Sure. Great. Well, for those people who have asked specific questions, I will email Peter directly and I will CC you guys into it so you can liaise directly with each other. But other than that, thank you once again for joining. It's been great to see some regulars around, and I hope to see you again the next webinar. And thanks, Peter, for your time and your presentation.
Sure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.